So the Flash, we have seen the Flash before, but the Flash hasn't had his own picture.
No. So worth mentioning, because you covered an awful lot of ground in that interview, the screenplay is by Christine Hodson, whose CV includes Bumblebee and Birds of Prey, just because that just didn't come up. So to recap very briefly, and I'm very conscious of the fact that at the screening that I saw, there was a thing at the beginning which said, look, please don't give any spoilers, allow people to enjoy. And I'm so fine.
What do you, so yes, but there are some...
No, there are some things
that I think we, like in the interview, we talk about Michael Keaton.
Precisely.
When I saw the video, I didn't know anything about that, but I think that is now out there. And
I didn't either.
Right.
And when it came up in the interview, there's a part of me kind of flinched, like, isn't that one of the things? But then, of course, as everyone said, no, that is out there in the ether. So to tread carefully by essentially saying things that were in the interview. So the story is Barry Allen, Flash, can run so fast that he can go back in time. He discovers that this is the case and he is advised against doing it because the butterfly effect is very dangerous, but he immediately tries to go back and save his mum, who was murdered when he was 8. His father is currently in prison, framed for the murder. There is a whole thing about video surveillance camera footage that may or may not exonerate his father, blah, 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 blah. As you yourself said, in the very first Superman movie, after the unfortunate event involving Lois Lane, Superman flies around the world so fast that he goes back in time and he's able to fix the problem. Probably the only time in the history of time traveling that doing that
gone well
has worked out and everyone's happy about it and hooray. So when he goes back to a world in which the Batman that he knew is not Batman in the past. Indeed, there is a central gag about it's a different Batman. It's almost as if you change from one multiplex screen to another multiplex screen to a world in which Batman is now played by, and because you brought this up in the interview, and as you said, it's out there in the world, it's Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton's Batman, who was the Tim Burton original Batman, is now washed up and bedraggled. I mean, it's interesting that Keaton's career goes from Batman through Birdman back to Batman in this, and he enjoys it very much. There's also, and again, I don't think this is a plot spoiler because it's also now a world in which Back to the Future didn't star Michael J. Fox, because we were talking about this in the review of Still, that Michael J. Fox was not the first actor to star in Back to the Future. They shot for 2 weeks with Eric Stoltz, and there is apparently still one shot in Back to the Future which has Stoltz in it, in just the same way that if you watch Apocalypse Now, the overhead helicopter shot of the boat leaving the dock, that's Harvey Keitel. It's so these things happen. So he appears to have slipped through the streams and entered a different version of the timeline. And throughout the film, there will be encounters with incarnations of characters who in other movie franchises have been, or other movie incarnations have been played by other actors. So in a way, you're sort of in the Doctor Who world, in which it's possible for the 3 Doctors or the 5 Doctors, for different people who've inhabited the role of Doctor Who, to meet and coexist. I mean, as I said, when we first started talking about multiverse stuff, this is really the first time I ever saw that done was the 3 Doctors. Well, how can they all be together in the same room? Wow, it's completely mind-blowing. There is also, of course, the issue that when you go back in time, you can meet yourself, and that's very, very dangerous. As everyone's always said, don't go back in time, don't meet yourself. Terrible things.
See Back to the Future.
Precisely. So, in terms of the thing about you go into a world in which other actors who have played these characters before can coexist. So that's not dissimilar to Spider-Man No Way Home, which was a lot of fun. And again, everyone kind of went out of their way not to spoil something, but I think people kind of had an assumption of what was happening. More significant, however, the sort of multi-timeline, fractured world multiverse, I think was done much better in the Spider-Verse animations. And it's interesting that right now, Spider-Verse is sitting at the top of Across the Spider-Verse is the #1 in the UK box office. And it's dazzling, and it's doing really, really well with audiences, and people love it. So I think there is an obvious precedent both in the live-action Spider-Man movies and in the animated Spider-Man movies that this kind of fractured multiverse, multi-stranded parallel universes thing is being done better in those movies. This is very full of fan jokes. And I mean, I understand the fan service thing because I'm a fan of horror movies, and I've always, when horror movies nod towards other horror movies, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. This is absolutely full of fan jokes. I mean, I don't want to mention any of them because there are a couple of little Easter eggs in there that even I thought, oh, that's cute. That's nicely done. That's a good gag. But I don't think it's doing anything that the Spider-Man franchise did better. The Ezra Miller thing, you asked the question about what does Ezra Miller bring to the role, because obviously Ezra Miller is in a complicated situation in terms of their, the things that have happened in their private life, and I know that they have now committed to, apology.
It's troublesome and problematic.
It's troublesome and problematic.
For sure.
And the answer was, well, they bring magic. I don't actually think that's true. I mean, I think Ezra Miller was terrific in We Need to Talk About Kevin. I remember seeing them in that film and thinking, wow, that's a terrifically exciting screen presence. I don't know that is actually true in terms of the role of the Flash. I mean, it's fine. It's a kind of, cheeky, sly, slightly. I just don't know that performance is as charismatic or as absolutely no one else could do this better. I think it's fine, but I think it's only fine. That's partly, I think, because the character of the Flash is, it's complicated to get that character right, and it's complicated to make that character anything more than a cipher for a whole bunch of plot devices. And there's a kind of dead ringers, David Cronenberg, dead ringers, acting with yourself thing, which is, complex to do. And I think they get that right. But I don't know that what they do is give you an incarnation of a character. You're looking like you were about to say something. Please, go ahead.
When Barry puts on the gear for the first time,
mm-hmm.
I thought the Flash just looked like David Walliams. That was my problem. It looked like David Walliams was being the Flash. That's all. I was not agreeing.
But are we on the same page about that?
I liked the intimate stuff. I liked the personal conversations. Like you say, there are some cute jokes. When it got to the multiverse, I thought it was a mess, and my heart sank just because we've seen it. It does nothing. It just breaks. You can do anything. Oh, look at what we've done. Look what we brought back. And the multiverse, for which there is no shred of proof anywhere, is now become this place where they go to tell a story, and I think it's boring.
Okay, well, without wishing to pick, I think the no shred of proof thing, if we take that, we're going to wipe out most of horror cinema and most of science fiction cinema. I mean, demonic possession doesn't exist, but I love The Exorcist.
I know. Well, you can do, but you could do space and you could do Krypton. You don't have to do multiverse. That's all I'm saying.
I think that if you look at Across the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, those are films that are doing multiverse interestingly. Mm-hmm. I think Everything Everywhere was doing it interestingly. I think for two-thirds of Flash, and it's too long, it's kind of fun. There's fun to be had. And it's a relief after the doom and gloomathons of the Snyderverse. It's kind of, at least it's bright and shiny. I think in the later sections, it becomes fantastically video gamey. It is surprising that a film of this level has got some of the shonkiest CG I've seen. I mean, okay, some of the CG is good. Some of it is really like...
Maybe that was part of the multiverse problem then. The fact that when you're using CG that heavily, it's working very hard.
Yeah, and CG does a lot of heavy lifting, and it's bad CG will just absolutely take the wind out of anything. So I think that the third act is exhausting rather than exhilarating, and I think that and the final stings is just like, oh, really. So I think it's fine. I came out of it thinking, I want this to stop. And you talked about, are we the end of this or the beginning of that?
Yes. I genuinely think they don't know.
Yeah, no, I genuinely think they don't know, and I genuinely think that the numbers will tell us what the answer to that question is. But I think artistically, it's wrung. It's wrung dry, right? Isn't it?
I think it probably is, and obviously there are also other question marks over what happens to Ezra Miller in the future. So
yeah,
we'll wait and see.
But there's stuff in it there's stuff in it that I enjoyed. There's 2 gags that I laughed out loud at, and there's 1 Easter egg that I thought, that's really smart.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's Take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.